Hello, thanks for joining me. A little bit of a change of scenery here. If you haven't guessed already, I am sat in my latest purchase. And I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit of setting the record straight, because the car that I bought is a little bit controversial and unpopular. And it gets given a bad rap by a lot of people. And I think that is unjustified. And I'm hoping this video explains a little bit more why. If you haven't guessed already, I am sat in a first generation Mercedes A-Class. So it's a W168. Now, whenever you say Mercedes A-Class to anybody other than the new ones, we're not worried about the new ones. The new ones are nice. Everybody knows the new ones are nice. These early ones, Mark 1s, a little bit Mark 2s, but especially these Mark 1s, everybody goes, ugh, A-Class, oh, what do you want one of them for? Ugh. Well, the thing is, these are good cars, and I've never met anybody who's owned an A-Class or driven an A-Class who had anything bad to say about it. There's a lot of bad things floating around on the internet, and I think if people put that to a side and actually got in here and experienced it, they'd be very surprised. They are a very good car, in my opinion. I do have a little bit of a soft spot. And so much so, when a friend of mine advertised this one for sale, it needs a little bit of work, I snapped it up. So I'm going to do a few little videos on it. I'm going to make a little bit of content. I'm not going to go mad, don't worry. But first, there's some things to be said. I feel like I've got to defend the A-Class honour a little bit here. So I'm going to explain why people maybe don't like it, and explain why they shouldn't not like it. Because they're fabulous. And for the time that they were released, they were way ahead of their time. These were released way back in the late 90s and ran all the way up to 2004. And frankly, they are so much better than any other 5-door hatchback that you could get at the time. So let's get out, we'll do a little walk around, and let's deal with some issues, huh? Here it is. First generation Mercedes A-Class. This one is a 2003, so a fairly late one, facelift. And first off, styling. People don't like how these look. They say they're ugly. I'm not having it, right? I don't think these are an ugly car. If you want to see an ugly car, look up a Fiat Multipla. These are not an ugly car. These have got a little bit of styling cues. You can tell it's a Mercedes. It's got that prominent grille on the front. These headlights have got a little bit of S-Class about them. The taillights have got a little bit of C-Class about them. I can see what they're trying to do with the styling. It does kind of look like a Mercedes. These lines, if you imagine it, a big long bonnet, these would carry on like a Mercedes would. But obviously these are considerably shorter and taller, which is where things start to go wrong for a lot of people, but that is where the Mercedes A-Class really does come into its own. So let's have a little chat about the elephant in the room, because everybody always mentions Mercedes A-Class, oh, they fall over. Yes, it fell over. Everybody knows it fell over. There is something called an elk test or a moose test, and basically you've got to do a manoeuvre left to right at speed, and the car shouldn't try to kill you. The Mercedes A-Class was one of the first cars to fail this spectacularly when it was released back in 1997. And people always mention that, they say the fall over, the handling's terrible, but Mercedes fixed it. Yes, it did fall over, we can't hide that, but they fitted every car with ESP, they fitted bigger anti-roll bars, and now it doesn't fall over. But it never really got over that reputation of failing the moose test, and that's probably why they're not so popular. But just want to make a point. I've got a list of other cars that have failed the moose test, which you probably didn't hear about. Toyota RAV4, Citroen C3 Aircross, Suzuki Jimny, the new one, Ford Mustang Mach-E, Mazda CX-3, Skoda Fabia, hybrid VW Passats or Skoda Superbs, and the Fiat 500e all failed the moose test. But you don't hear about that. None of them cars get a bad rap for bad handling, but these do. How's that fair? So the A-Class is very short, it's very tall, which is why it failed that roost test. But like I said, they fixed them issues. The advantages that that gives you is a large passenger compartment. It's quite high to get into. It's not for everybody. You ain't going to find many boy racers driving these. Maybe it is a granny car. We'll leave that to you to decide. But that's not just all this car is. There's a lot of cars nowadays that have followed suit with this kind of style, high hatchback kind of size. You've got high rising, you've got things like Ford B-Max, you've got Marivas, Moccas, things like that, which are high up. Everybody wants a high up car now. SUVs, crossovers are taking over the world. They're all high up, everybody wants to be high up. This was high up before anybody else was high up. But that's not all. In all the other cars I just mentioned there, you've got a traditional engine in the front, driving the front wheels in an upwards kind of direction. The Mercedes A-Class isn't like that. The engine in this is lying down at this kind of angle. The sump is actually somewhere back here. The cylinder head's pointing that way, so it's fully laid down like this. Now the advantages that gives you is a very, very short nose, which means that the passenger compartment is massive compared to anything else that was available at the time. I'm talking Astras, Focuses and the likes. None of them were as big as this inside for the actual size of the car, which is phenomenal. Another nice bit of information for you is, because the engine is on such an angle like this, if you have a really big crash in your A-Class, the engine cannot go into the passenger compartment. Sometimes if you have a really big crash, maybe the engine can break through. Modern cars not so much, but earlier cars, a bit of intrusion didn't go amiss. The A-Class can't do that because the engine is this kind of angle. So what happens if you have a big crash at the front, the engine just goes under the floor. No intrusion to the passenger compartment at all. Now, a problem with laying the engine down like that is that it is a little bit complicated. Things aren't laid out in a normal kind of fashion like a normal kind of car, which does make them challenging in some respects to work on, and that means that people don't like working on these. In my experience, I've found any mechanic I've spoke to says these are horrible to work on, avoid them like the plague, don't get involved. But really, if they're maintained properly, these are quite reliable. They do get issues, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that this car is never going to get any problems. This one's got problems, that's why I bought it. But every car gets issues, and you've got to pick your poison a little bit. The issues these get, surprisingly, with the Mercedes of this vintage, it isn't rust. They do rust a little bit on the back arches, but generally they don't really go that rusty. Reliability issues, you can have general wear and tear, brakes, coil springs, suspension, things like that. Lambda sensor failure and mass airflow sensor failure on the petrol models. Diesel models, they did do a 1.7 diesel. They do suffer sometimes with injector problems and glow plug failure, and then the problem with that is the glow plugs don't come out, they seize into the cylinder head, which is a problem. Most of these A-classes are automatic. I think that was more the buyer demographic. All Mercedes should be automatic. Mercedes do a very good automatic gearbox, but it's different in this. It's not like any other Mercedes gearbox with it being front wheel drive. And they're a nice car to drive. You can get them semi-automatic or fully automatic or a regular manual. The automatic ones do get problems. There's circuitry in the gearbox to control it all that has a tendency to fail, and it is quite a few £100 to get that fixed. Vehicle of this age, it's probably not worth it. Manuals are rare. This one is a manual. We've got a nice wiggly stick here. They are rare, and maybe that spoils the driving experience of a Mercedes a little bit, but in my opinion it is more reliable. There's less to go wrong. All you've got is a clutch in there that might need change at some point. The rest of the gearbox kind of situation is very reliable. Inside you've got a strange shaped dash, but you're looking at a Mercedes steering wheel, a Mercedes clocks, with a Mercedes radio and Mercedes switches out of all the regular models for this kind of year. So you can't complain. This one is a classic spec, so it is a little bit basic. We've got cloth seats, keep fit windows in the back. But as standard, we've got electric windows in the front, we've got automatic wipers, we've got heated rear screen, we've got ESP, we've got electric door mirrors. So you don't feel too much like you're in the Stone Age. And you've got to remember, these were released back in the late 90s. So you can't compare it too much to a modern car, really, can you? There's not much to see under the bonnet with it being such a short engine bay. It's about as long as my forearm. Got the air cleaner on the top, inlet manifold here in front, and then the rest of the engine sneaks off that way, as I explained. There was a range of engines available. You can get a 1.4, 1.6 petrol, A140, A160. Later on they did an A190 as well with a 1.9 petrol engine. You can get a A170, 1.7 turbo diesel. And believe it or not, they did do an AMG 2.1 A210 Evolution it's called, but it was an AMG. So in here, the engines are fairly reliable. You'll get a good lifespan out on these engines if it's looked after, which is the key. Servicing is key. They're not that easy to work on in some respects. The oil filter's right down there. The spark plugs definitely need to be changed. They're down the front here. The problem you'll find is mechanics probably don't want to work on these because they're very different to any other cars. So really the key here is find yourself a good mechanic who isn't scared of it and get them to work on it. Find a car that's been looked after. This one has. It's got full service history, 61,000 miles in this, which isn't bad for a 22-year-old car. But yeah, really there's no reason to be frightened. Remember that when these were released, this was the smallest car in Mercedes range. Before then, the smallest car that you could get from Mercedes was a C-Class. So this was a big step for Mercedes to make something like this. This was way out of the comfort zone, and they made something that nobody else had made at that point. And it's got some real cool features. Now in the back, I'm sat in here, I've got that seat all the way back. And I have got plenty leg room. I'm not a tall man, I'm about 5'10", but the space in there is plenty. And that seat's all the way back. You look at over here at the passenger side, which is in a more sensible place. Look at the space there. Now, this is standard wheelbase or short wheelbase. You could actually get these as a long wheelbase, and the back of the long wheelbase version is absolutely massive. Now, this little A-Class has another trick up its sleeve. Not only do these seats fold like you'd expect to make a nice big boot, they also, if I can do this properly, there we go, find the handle, they tilt right up to give a nice big boot space. And if you want to do some tip runs maybe, pull this little lever back here, and the seats lift completely out. So this will leave a full flat floor van essentially. All the A-Classes do this, and I can't think of any other car in this sector, 5-door hatchback, early 2000s, late 90s, that could do this. This is absolutely amazing. To top it off, we've got a nice big boot here, which is big enough for me. So there we are, guys. This is my latest little project. It's got some niggly issues, this one. We've got an engine management light on, we've got an oil level sensor fault, we've got a couple of broken coil springs, and it is due an MOT shortly. But there's a good car in here somewhere. And if you're in the market for one of these, you can pick these up phenomenally cheap. I got this one for absolute pennies. They're not worth a lot of money in today's terms. So they really are a nice little bargain. If you don't mind something a bit funky, if you don't mind a bit different, if you don't mind people not really understanding why you've bought it, a bit like me, then go and have a look at one. Find one with a bit of nice spec, half leather seats, good colour. You can get them with alloy wheels. This is a base spec model. Find one that's been looked after, and I promise you, you'll love it. I've never met an A-Class owner who didn't like it, and that's a guarantee. So I hope you'll join me along in the next few weeks getting this little A-Class fixed up. I'll do a couple of nice little videos of the faults that we've got to deal with. They're a good car, really, I promise. Don't listen to the internet. The internet's full of lies. Don't listen. I won't have it. Maybe I'm just a bit of an old man, but I love that. If this was an AMG or a top spec, maybe a 190, I'd really be tempted to keep it. This won't be staying with me very long. I'm going to get it fixed up and find it a new owner. This really is a peach of a car. It's got a few little bodywork marks here and there, but that mileage in the interior is absolutely spotless. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to fixing this up. So, do you agree with what I've said there about this little A-Class? Let me know in the comments section.